Hey, everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here. Another edition of Off the Top Rope. I saw an interesting social media post from an AEW stan who basically was talking about, AEW being the best product in pro wrestling right now, which I kind of laugh at. I mean, WWE hasn't been great this year, but there's been this discussion that, 2025 has been a great year for AEW. And, listen, I don't agree with that. But let's kind of juxtapose and let's kind of compare and contrast this year, which some people say is one of the best years AEW's ever had, Tony Khan and some of their fans. And let's compare it to last year, which I thought was not a great year for AEW, but they had some big signings. They brought in Okada, they brought in Mercedes, they brought in Will Ospreay, they brought in Ricochet. They had a good run there. I mean, Swerve became the first Black World Champion in company history, which was great. Samoa Joe quietly had a really nice world title run. When you think about it, 2024 wasn't as bad as we built it up to be. It wasn't great because we got the Death Riders for the last 3 months of the year. A lot of Mercedes and her reign of terror kind of began. And, a lot of the novelty of one of the great professional wrestlers, and specifically on the women's side, is kind of worn off. And that women's division is kind of sunk. But you know what? Hey, let's kind of go piece by piece here and kind of let's just compare where 2024 and 2025, because I'll just tell you guys right now, even as bad as 2024 appeared, it's still better than this year. Because like I said, major signings, you had Okada, Mercedes, and Will Ospreay. Your big signings this year are what? Kevin Knight, Speedball Mike Bailey, and Josh Alexander. And God bless all those guys who were TNA, mainstays, and they're good professional wrestlers. They're not even close to the other three that I mentioned last year. Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada are universally considered two of the best in the world. Mercedes, had a ton of equity coming in, being a big time signing and, really establishing for the women's division. But let's think about this for a second. So in 2024, in the World Heavyweight Championship picture, you had Samoa Joe as the world champion. He won it at World's End from MJF after a really longest world championship run ever. So you had that. So Samoa Joe wins the championship, has a really solid few months as the world champion. I hope people look back on the history and understand that Samoa Joe was a really good world champion. Swerve beats him. His title run wasn't perfect, but he had some good moments. He had a match that was, it wasn't built up very well with Christian Cage, but that was great. But that was a great match at Double or Nothing. Adam Copeland was the TNT champion for a while, and then he broke his foot in a foolish move. Mercedes Moné won in her first match. I guess that's okay. But so anyway, let's stick with the men here for a second. So, Swerve was the champion for a while. Then Hangman returns as a heel. And Bryan Danielson ends up winning the Owen and wins the world championship in a great moment. What it led to is a completely separate issue. But you take a look at those and then Jon Moxley was your world champion at the end of the year. So from the world championship perspective, that was Jon Moxley's been the only world champion we've had in 2025, and it's objectively been one of the worst world heavyweight championship runs, not just in AEW, but in any professional pro wrestling promotion, maybe ever. This is universally considered a bad world title run, and it's still going on. They're trying to recreate, I make this sheepish joke, but it's almost like a skinhead version of the Bloodline. That's what they're trying to do because they get all this bullshit interference and, nobody can knock them off. So that's been weird. They continued the Swerve Hangman stuff in 2024, 2025. It should have been for the world title, but whatever. Jack Perry came back. Cool. He had some novelty. The tag team division that you still had FTR and the Young Bucks fighting over things. Now you got the Hurt Syndicate who has nobody to fight against them. You looking at it, international championship. Will Ospreay faced MJF. Will Ospreay was actually a really good international champion. He really was. And then Takeshita wins it near the back half of the year. Ricochet comes in. That was kind of botched, but you look at some of the other things that went on in this division. TNT Championship, you had Cope, then you had Jack Perry. I mean, Christian was the TNT champion. Daniel Garcia wins it at the back half of the year. Like I said, you look at where this product was in 2024. It wasn't great, but you compare that to what we're doing in 2025. Like Adam Cole won the TNT title in the most underwhelming way possible. The international championship, Kenny Omega, but that's another thing. Though if there's one positive that we got that improved from 2024 to 2025 is that Kenny Omega is back. That's the one thing that 2025, I think, has on 2024. But outside of that, there is a lot of just nonsense that's gone on this year. Like I said, the Jon Moxley title run, I mean, international title run, Kenny looks like as good as he's ever been. The TNT title is really irrelevant in a large sense of the word. Continental Championship's been the same thing, which nobody gives a shit about. When it comes to the women, this is a big reason why 2024 AEW, I think, is better in a large way than 2025 AEW, because all of the equity that they had in 2024 has worn off substantially. In 2024, you had one of the great women's storylines, not just in AEW, maybe anywhere, between the previously known Mariah May, now Blake Monroe, and Toni Storm, that was lasting through 2023, through 2024, and then it bled into early 2025. But it was really just the scraps and really just, giving Toni back the title. Like the arc that had this, that built to it, was unbelievable television. And that turn from Mariah May was one of the best moments in women's AEW history. Mercedes Moné was one of the biggest stars in this division when she got brought in. You look at her now, she's got 75 different titles. All the equity that she came in with has worn off substantially. Like, she is not nearly at the level of, like, everybody knows she's great, but she's gotten exposed in her promos. There's no character development. A lot of the stories that have led into her matches have not meant anything. The wrestling has been fine, but I think the moment really for me, there was a couple things that really, made 2024 stand out, is like, she wins the championship from Willow Nightingale. It was a great match. Willow had a 1-month title run, which was dumb. And then obviously you had the stuff with Chris Statlander, and they're still trying to fix that, which was a mistake. But Mercedes really didn't this year compare. At least she was wrestling last year. This year she's not. Like I think she just defended. For like the first time in like 2 to 3 months, she had a 5-minute title defense. The women's division is a joke. It's a joke compared to what it was previous year, because at least you had multiple feuds that you could sell going in. You have one. Granted, it is going to be great between Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné, but like, my God, like, you just, from free agency signings to what the men's division was to what the women's division was, 2024, as bad as it looked, easily is better than 2025. The one thing that 2025 AEW has gained on, at least at this point, halfway through the year, is that Kenny Omega is back in professional wrestling. And that is great for everybody, because that guy is as good of a professional wrestler as you're ever going to find. So debate all that you can want, but to me, like I said, this isn't even really a contest. And I think one of the big reasons why the top women's feud and, like, your biggest star in the women's division has lost a lot of the novelty of her. And then your world champion, nobody gives a shit about. And we've just been waiting for that to end. So that's my thoughts on that situation. We'll see if AEW can potentially rectify this. They've got a big show next month. They haven't seemed to want to put any effort into making it feel like a big show, other than putting the names on a card and just like saying, hey, buy our show. But we'll see. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys. Bye-bye.